Hey, it's Noreen with a new episode of Noreen's Homestead. I'm going to start a new series, and we're going to go from the beginning for canning. I want to start a series for canning. Let me start there. But I'm making my bread and butter pickles tonight, and I thought since I'm doing them, I shouldn't waste the opportunity to show you how I do this. So what I'm going to ask you to do, if you've never done any canning before, is to just kind of watch this and enjoy it if you like, but keep it in your favorites or come back later to my channel and watch it after we start our series, because I'm going to start from the very beginning, and I'm going to start with the very basics, the equipment, the tools, and all of the jargon and the vocabulary and all of the necessary ideas that you need to begin canning on your own on a small scale, and then you can work yourself up. We're going to start with water bath canning and work our way all the way up to pressure canning. We're going to do some meat, some stews, some chili, and we're going to go all the way through so that you will know exactly what you need to do, and you'll have a video reference when you get brave enough to start on your own. Because I've had a lot of people ask me if I could show them personally and explain things on canning, but I think it's better if I do this on a broader scale, and that way everybody who needs help or wants some information will have it, and this will be your good reference for that. But anyway, enough of that. Tonight I'm making my bread and butter pickles, and since, like I said, I already did a lot of the slicing and chopping and stuff, so I'll show you where we are now. And I didn't have a bowl large enough, so this is the canner pot that I don't use, and it is enamel on steel. So what I will say is you either need to use a steel pot or a steel bowl or a glass bowl. Do not use aluminum, otherwise you will ruin your pickle. I have 20 cups of sliced cucumber in here. All of these cucumbers came out of my garden. I also have a small bag of baby carrots, as well as 6 medium Vidalia onions, which I ran through my mandolin. One of these, but please don't feel like you need one of those. Excuse me. And I put them all in here. Now, what we're going to do is this is a cup of pickling salt. Do not use iodized salt, and do not use kosher salt. The reason we don't use iodized salt is because iodized salt contains iodine, and it will turn your pickle an ugly color. It'll turn it gray or green or ugly, black in some cases. The reason we don't use kosher salt is because ounce per ounce kosher salt weighs less than fine salt that is processed for pickling. So we're going to go ahead and, since this pot is so large, I'm just going to go ahead and toss this, and things are going to fall out. I only put about half in there, so I'm going to put the other half in now. Give it another good toss. Okay, when you're satisfied that the salt is in there and mixed in fairly well throughout the pot or the bowl or whatever the case may be in your instance, we're going to leave this alone for 2 hours on the kitchen counter at room temperature. You don't want it any place where it's super hot. You don't want it any place where it's super cool. Of course, this time of year, I don't know anybody's kitchen who's super cool, but I'm certainly just going to put my lid on it so that I have a lot of fruit out lately and tomatoes, and we're starting to have to catch some fruit flies, and that's no fun. So I don't want anything bothering this, so I'm going to let it go take a nap for about 2 hours. I'm going to cook dinner, and then after that time we're going to clean up, we're going to come back, and I'll show you what happens next. Okay, it has been at a little bit over 2 hours. We've had our dinner, and I've gotten everything set up. I like to clean off my kitchen table completely. I like to use the bleach spray and wipe everything down. I like to get out my cutting board so I have a nice heat absorbent surface for when I'm canning. I washed a flat plus 5 loose pint jars that I had lying around. I'll have Rick come over here. This past weekend, this is what I did. I did 20 pounds of ground beef in the pressure canner. And I did 50 pounds of peaches, and these are amazing.
Yes, they are.
They are delicious, but you can see we've already eaten some of them. I got 32 pints, and I have shared some with the neighbors, and then I think we've eaten 2 or 3 of them, but they're really delicious.
Fighting the battle over here.
Yeah, I know. I also was able, I have to show you this, but let me grab it out of the pantry real quick, out of the laundry room. I was sharing with my friend Bev, my half-acre homestead. Her YouTube channel is The Mrs. Bolfie, Volfie, I believe. And when I went to buy my peaches, you know, they have a markdown rack at the grocery store for the produce. And they had a whole bunch of cremini or baby bella mushrooms, the sliced kind. And they also had, and they're in here, I promise you, these baby button mushrooms. And they had 1 pound packages, and they marked down to $1 because the expiration date on them, the sell-by date was that day. I bought every package that they had, and I threw them. I came right home. I threw them in the dehydrator, and I, along with that.
And these are also amazing.
They're really delicious, just right out of the can, just dried. But this is a number 10 can that I had emptied from something else. I never throw them out, and this is a really good way to store your dehydrated goods that you've done yourself. You're gonna laugh. This is 2 1-pound containers of baby spinach. I also threw those on the dehydrator. And as I put them in the jar, I used the handle of a wooden spoon to kind of mash them down and crush them. So I have spinach flakes, so the next time I want to throw a spoonful or 2 into some chicken soup or something, I just thought that would be really good. You never let things like that go to waste, because when you can get stuff for $1, it shouldn't go in the garbage. It should, even if you just brought it home and fed it to your chickens, it's not going to go to waste. It's going to be consumed by something and transformed into energy. All right, we've got clean jars, and yes, I'm a little anal. I put my plastic wrap over them because right now I've had a lot of veggies in the kitchen, and I've got a little fruit fly issue, and I hate that. So these are clean. I've got my rings. I've got my lids are simmering on the stove, and Robert, turn around. I also have my canner coming up to temperature on the stove, and I have my stock pot here. And I'm thinking I'm going to get my larger stock pot out, so excuse me one moment. Okay, that's done. First thing we're going to do before we rinse our salt off of our veggies, then we're going to build our brine. And our brine consists of these items. I have 6 cups of vinegar. And what you're going to tell me is, oh no, you have to put water. I've been making this bread and butter pickle recipe for years. 6 cups of vinegar, 4 cups of granulated sugar, and these are the spices that I choose. I deviate from the recipe on this. The recipe does not call for pickling spice. However, I find that pickling spice is necessary for my taste. So, the original recipe only calls for the mustard seed, the celery seed, and the turmeric. I have here 1/4 cup, because we have a lot of pickles. This is 20 cups of cucumbers and 6 onions. And you'll see what else I'm going to add to it. So 1/4 cup of pickling spice, 2 tablespoons of mustard seed, 2 tablespoons of celery seed, and 2 tablespoons of turmeric. Now the turmeric doesn't really lend that much of a flavor, but it does lend that bread and butter pickle color that I enjoy. So we're going to add all these to the pot and get it simmering. I don't know where you want to stand. I have my sugar and the vinegar, and I'm going to turn this on to a medium-high. And another thing I do, this is just going to go straight in there. Some people like to use a garni bag or a little piece of pantyhose. I like the whole spices right in the pickle. I like looking at the jar and seeing all these spices, that settle to the bottom. That's just me. I like it that way, so that's how I do it. If you don't like it that way, then please feel free to do it your way and leave them in the garni bag so that they don't float all over the place. Let me just stick these things in the dishwasher. And that we're gonna just let come to a simmer. And then what?
You talking about the mystery item in there?
I'm gonna show it right now.
Okay.
The mystery, what mystery item? This?
Mm-hmm.
That's just a dried chili that was in the pickling spice.
Oh, I think you can put more peppers in.
Oh, I'm gonna put those in the individual jars.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But the one thing that I add to my bread and butter pickles, besides the carrots, which is a little different, is cauliflower. I love the pickled cauliflower this way. Now, I normally would use fresh cauliflower. This is frozen and I just defrosted it under some warm water. But when I went to the store today, the cauliflower was $4 a head. And I almost exploded my head when I saw that. So I thought, you know what? Instead of putting the fresh cauliflower in it, when I would normally put it in as I salted the veggies to draw a little of the moisture out of it, I thought, well, I'm just going to get frozen cauliflower and thaw it, because the thawing of the frozen stuff would replicate it sitting in the salted pot. So the next thing we're going to do, and Rick can come over here because I want to show you how much water has been rendered out of these cucumbers. They're starting to look like pickles. Look at, that's all water that's come out of the vegetables. And the carrots, they soften up a little. You can see they're not completely soft, but they're delicious when they're pickled like this. So the one thing we're going to do now is we're going to carry this over to the sink. We're going to get our cold water going. And I know Rick can't see me doing that, but we're just dumping this into a colander. The camera can see. Okay. This ain't Hollywood, folks. This is real life. All right, I'm just going to remove this. And then if you're fortunate enough to have a sprayer on your sink, which I think is almost necessary anymore, and I've got cold water, you're going to want to rinse this very, very well. And you're going to want to, get down in there. You want to get all that extra salt off of it. Just because you don't want it too salty. I mean, it is a pickle, but we're making a sweet pickle, so we don't want it terribly salty. The only salt that's in this is the salt that we put in here to draw out the water. So it is going to be salty. And everybody has their own way of doing this. I know some people who enjoy slicing their pickles, blanching them in some hot water after they're sliced. I've never done it that way. I've always done it this way. And this is the very first thing I ever learned how to can. And when I lived in Williams, Arizona, and I had moved there about 2 years after my parents had moved there. I was 21 years old, 22 years old, and my mother had taken me to one of the ladies' aid meetings, and one of the ladies had made these bread and butter pickles, and her name was Jeannie Weiss, and she was the owner. She and her family owned the country grocery there, which is no longer in existence. But I asked her, they were so delicious, and my dad loved them, and when I saw her, I asked her if she would write down the recipe, and she asked me if I had ever canned anything, and I said no, but I'm pretty sure I can figure it out. And she said, no, you can't just figure out how to can. And now I understand why. When I was 22 years old, I thought I could do anything. I'm 45 and I still think I can do anything, and you can't tell me I can't. But I think things like this are really much better when someone who's been doing it for a number of years shows you how to do it. She invited me to her home, and she showed me step by step everything I needed to do so that I could go home and do it myself. And that was very special. It's a very special memory for me, and I will carry that with me for the rest of my life. But now I share it with you. So, there's our rinsed veggies, our cucumbers, carrots, and onions, and our cauliflower. And now we're going to have to take a moment and wait for our brine to come to a boil. And when that happens, I'm going to come back and then we're going to dump all of those delicious vegetables into this brine and we're going to bring it back to a boil. And then we can get down to business. So I'll be back soon. Okay, we have reached a boil and we're getting ready to put our veggies back in, well, not back, but in the brine. And then once we put them in there, we're going to bring it back up to a boil. But one thing I forgot to mention, and Rick's going to show you the veggies. We rinsed them, you saw us do that. But I don't know that I explained to you why we salted them. The reason we salted them was to draw some of the water out. And some recipes call for salting and then putting in the refrigerator for 12 hours or overnight or several days. This one is just a really quick pickle recipe. It's not something you're going to do in 45 minutes, but you know, you're going to do it in an afternoon for sure. I'm doing it after work this evening. It's Friday night. I started this before supper and we're probably going to finish before midnight. Let's face it, I'm a wild woman and I like to get stuff done. So, because tomorrow I plan on doing salsa. So, all right. So what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna put the veggies in the brine that's boiling. And okay, another helpful hint for those of you who have never undertaken pickling. Don't stand over the pot and breathe in the vinegar fumes because you will hurt yourself. Without a doubt, you will hurt yourself. It's very, very unpleasant. Okay, get these down in there.
Tammy doesn't like the pickle.
Dogs don't like pickles. My dogs, there are very few vegetables. They'll eat broccoli. She'll probably eat the cauliflower. They steal, if we are out in the garden collecting cherry tomatoes and we put the basket on the ground, they all steal the tomatoes. And the other thing that I did while we were gone is I did add about a half a dozen of my own bay leaf that I usually keep a little bit up here on the little spice rack I keep on my stove. Okay. Put that in there. And now we have to bring this all back to a boil. And because that cauliflower is a little cold, and because the cucumbers and everything else were cold, not icebox cold, but cold, it's going to take, I'd say, 15-20 minutes before this comes back to a full boil.
And that's the biggest pot you had?
Well, this is the largest stainless steel pot that I have. I didn't want to cook it in the canner pot because the canner pot is old and you do run the risk of ruining your pickles. So I am going to fix that problem. This is a 21 quart canner, stainless steel Ball Elite canner, and this was my gift to myself this year. This is a fabulous pot. Rick actually, when we canned up some of his spaghetti sauce and he made it in that pot and it was the perfect size. So what we're going to do is we're going to let this come to a boil. I'm going to put the lid on it so it'll come to a boil more quickly. If I can find the lid. I'll locate it. In any case, I'll be back when this is boiling and I'll show you what happens next because then we move on to the canning process. We are boiling. And they've been boiling for just a few minutes, simmering. And that's just what we're doing. I'm going to turn them off now.
Smell wonderful.
Smell good. And I need to bring my improvise here. I need my pot with my lids in it. And you want to make sure that you don't, help, that was hot. That's stupid. Okay. You always want to do not boil your lids, otherwise you risk not sealing properly later when you put them in the water bath. You only want to simmer them. So I usually put these on the burner and let it get hot. I usually put it on a 3.
Not steamed up.
Oh, sorry. Okay. And I'm going to carry this pot of cucumbers over here. And I will let you know, I'm not going to let Rick show you my ceiling fan because it's horribly dirty and I need to clean it. If you have a ceiling fan in your kitchen like I do over my table, and this is where I have my workspace because my kitchen doesn't have a lot of counter space in it, turn your ceiling fan off when you're canning because it can be detrimental to the canning process. So, what we're going to do is we're just going to put our canning funnel in the jar and we're going to start ladling our veggies in there. And on these, you're going to want a quarter to a half inch of headspace on these. I've got an onion string on me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just show you how I normally do it. Canning is very, I'm not going to say precise, but you want to make sure that you keep everything as clean as possible. In fact, let's get a get some of those bigger pieces out of here. There we go. Now, we're not quite done yet. We'll set this jar aside. You want to make sure that vegetables are covered in brine, just like that. That brings up to where you want your headspace to be. Perfect. And these are good. If you let these cool, you can enjoy them tomorrow, but they won't be as good as if you waited at least 3 weeks. At least 3 weeks.
Enough juice?
Hmm?
Can you have enough juice?
Yep.
Not quite. Okay, there you go.
There we go.
That was about perfect.
Oh, just about. Alright, next thing we must do is get yourself some damp paper towel. Now I can move these over here. We're going to wipe the rims. Now keep in mind, these jars are hot. And that is going to drive me up the wall. That's the only problem with the onions, so make sure you wipe the rims very well. And I kind of do this assembly line style. I fill them all. I wipe them all. Like that. Okay. The other thing that you want to make sure, and I forgot, you have to go around the edge with this tool, or you can use a plastic knife. Do not use metal. You run the risk of nicking the inside of your jar, then it will rupture while it's inside your canner, and you know, what'd you do all that hard work for if you're just going to go ahead and break it?
Not to mention the big mess.
And, well, at least it'd be in a pan full of water, but you're just going to run this along the outside of the jar and the inside of the jar, pardon me, around the outer edge of the inside of the jar, all the way down. And you know what? That one doesn't have a whole lot of. This will release any air bubbles or pockets that have developed inside after putting the hot pickles in there. You don't want any air bubbles because then you risk not getting a good seal. Are you going to eat a hot one? All right. And then by request, you may have seen these. I have these, they came out of the garden, my cayennes. We're going to put a cayenne, one cayenne in a few of these jars. And then over time, that'll become nice and pickled in that brine. But it will also flavor the pickles. And they'll be a little bit spicy. I'm only going to do 6 though. Alright, we'll continue wiping. And you'll notice I'm trying to change the spot on my paper towel each time I wipe. I think if we just use common sense when we're canning and not let it intimidate us and know that this has been done for hundreds of years in one way or another, everything's going to turn out fine for you. And if you don't get a good seal on one of your jars, not to worry, just put it in there, let it cool all the way, and then put it in the refrigerator and enjoy it.
With dinner next night.
Exactly. Nothing to get upset about or worried over. When to worry is when you take it out of the pantry and the lid is bulging. That's when you want to discard it immediately. Okay. Now, we get our trusty lid lifter. Hello. I didn't want that in there. All right. Finger tight on your ring. You don't want to torque it down so much that your glass is going to crack. And you'll notice that when I washed my jars, I put them on this cookie tray, what's cookie baking sheet, and I lined it with a ShamWow. And the only reason I have ShamWows is because I got them at Big Lots I think I got them for $5 for this big box. And you know what? For that price, if I have to throw one out, who cares?
Oh, hey. They're made in Germany. You know the Germans make good stuff.
They do, Vince. Alright, now I'm not going to be able to process all of these at once. I'm only going to be able to do 8 at one time. So, I have my canner going. Let's walk over to the stove.
And you should do 6 and 6.
When you open your canner, please make sure that you open it away from you. Otherwise, you're going to get a horrible steam burn. Alright, the other thing that you must have is one of these. A jar lifter. My water was at a full rolling boil. I'm going to put 6 in here at once. Do I have 12? I have 11. So I'll do, I'll do 7 this time, and then I'll do 6 next time. No, that's 13. Wow, can you tell it's late? That's 6. You want to make sure you have at least 2 inches of water above the tops of your jars, and you'll want to bring this back to a boil. Now you see these air bubbles? That is not boiling. That is air escaping from the inside of the jar. Do not mistake that for boiling. We're going to put the lid back on. And I have to consult my book to remember how long I can process these. While I have it, I'll show you what book it is. These need to process for 10 minutes. And these are called traditional bread and butter pickles. And this recipe is from the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving. If you are thinking about canning, I suggest highly that you buy this book first and kind of really read it, because it has all of the essential information that you're going to need in order to begin canning, get an idea of what canning is about, what you're going to have to do. See here, here's a little diagram what I was just telling you. Bear Prepper does this all the time. These are those rings that go on the jars. So if you don't have a rack like I have, usually your canners come with a rack. And sometimes the cheap ones are made out of, what are they made out of? They're crap. But they oxidize really bad and they rust. And you know, if you're going to pay $8 to $10 for something, you may as well upscale and get a better one. The one I have now is all stainless steel. But these, you know, you can put these together with bread ties or zip ties, because, you know, the boiling water is not going to melt a zip tie. And you can just have a little canning rack all for your own that you made, and it didn't cost anything. But this book, I highly recommend. You can get it at any bookstore. You can get it. Amazon has it. Barnes & Noble has it. What's that other one? I can't think of it. Anyway, this book or the Ball Blue book. The Ball Blue book is good for basic recipes. This one has a lot of extra information in it. So that's the one that I refer to often. And then I also refer to a lot of ladies on YouTube. But here we go. You can see now this water is coming to a boil. When your water starts to come to a boil, you're going to start the timer. Since this isn't a full rolling boil, it's probably going to take, I'd say, 2 more minutes. I'm going to set my timer for 12 minutes so that I can walk away from it and do other things without standing here waiting for it. So when we come back, I'm going to show you these coming out of the canner, and then we'll hopefully hear them do a little pinging. Alright, as you can see, this is our second batch. The camera battery was low, so we took out the first batch. Put this batch in, process them for 12 minutes. 2 minutes to get the water up to boil, and then 10 minutes for the process. And then we're going to carry them. I always put my jars on a kitchen table, on a bath towel that's folded in half. And we're going to carry those over there right now. Oh, did you hear that? Perfect timing. We just had one go pop, and that's my cat who likes to, she always likes to lay where the hot jars are. I guess she's no dummy. Oh. Okay. There's our 11 jars of bread and butter pickles. That one just sealed. That's sealed. Oh, don't do that.
Well,
you shouldn't push down on the button until it pops itself. But those should be fine. And you will hear that ping as it pulls down in and pulls a vacuum on the jar. Then you'll know that you have a good seal. Now tomorrow, after these have set all night, you're going to take the rings off, you're going to wipe the jar clean, and then you're going to kind of lift it up by the lid to make sure that you've got a good seal. If the lid pops off, you know you don't have a good seal and you're going to want to eat those. So, there you have it. The process of making bread and butter pickles. And it is now 11:15 at night. So you will forgive the way I look. But I hope you try this, and I hope you enjoy it. And remember, do not be intimidated to try canning, because it is as easy as it gets, and the rewards are endless. So, until next time, happy canning!